everyone, I'm Rita Peterson with Everything Homemade, and this is the final and one of the most important and exciting episodes in this whole entire cheese making series. Is we are actually going to make cheese today. So now that you know how to milk a cow, you know why we heat some milk up, why we don't. You now know what utensils to use. You know how to make the buttermilk culture. You know how to make the cheese press. So armed with all that information that I have taught you, now it's time to have the real fun and make cheese. So what do we need to do? Well, I have a pot here. And this pot holds 1.3 gallons. So if your pot holds 2 gallons, great. This recipe is for 2 gallons. It works for just a little less because this is about the size of my pot. I also have a stainless steel pot that holds 4 gallons, but it's a little overkill for doing one cheese. I like when I do 2 cheeses, is that one. So I have 2 separate pots depending on how much cheese I am making. You can definitely double, triple, quadruple this recipe easily. With cheese making, it is easy to do, so you can do large batches. So when Cinnamon, my milk cow's name is Cinnamon, when Cinnamon was really in high production, I was doing 2 cheeses at a time every 5 days. So it was really convenient to have it all into one pot. But right now she's on a decrease because in about 3 months she will freshen out with a calf. So what do we need to do? 1, you need a pot. 2, you need your whisk. You need a thermometer or cheese. It needs to be precise, okay? And mine is. So, and there's many different versions you can have, there's so many out there, whichever the case is, as long as it's precise. Okay, so we need to pour our milk. Now I'm pouring a milk right from the fridge. This is cold milk. So I have been saving up for the last 5 days. I know she's on a decrease, so it takes a little bit to save up milk. And you can see that it is as much cream as possible on these gallons. And you have to remember, you guys, when I made cheese in summer, because there is so much more cream, you actually have more curds with more cream than with milk. So the richer the milk, the more curds you'll have on a smaller volume of milk. So there we have it. My pot's full. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the temperature up to fairly high, and I'm going to go 7. Now, if you can't constantly watch this, do not do that. But I am going to be here stirring this constantly so I won't burn the milk. Okay, so the next part to cheese making is with cheddar cheese. Because we are making cheddar cheese, we need to raise the milk temperature to 82 Fahrenheit. Not 80 and not 83, 82 Fahrenheit. Okay? So that's why I say your temperature gauge needs to be accurate. Very important. So, I mean, it's ice cold right now. So I'm not even going to worry about taking that temperature, and I'm literally going to just stir this. It'll take about 10 minutes to reach that temperature, but I am just going to stir this. I'm going to check the temperature every now and again, and I'm going to get this to 82 Fahrenheit. Okay, so about 10 minutes later, because I have this on high heat and I can get away with this at this stage of cheese, is I am at 80 Fahrenheit. So I have 2 degrees to go. So I'm just going to watch it carefully here as I am talking. Now the nice thing with how this cheddar cheese is made is you can do it while you are busy at home. So as you can see over there, my kids are doing school. And so between me teaching them and between cheese making, I can accomplish this task. I have also, you kind of time it, what you can do and what you can't do. But it's nice because you can do something else. So it's 82 Fahrenheit. I turn off the hot plate. Okay. And in this meantime, I am going to go into my cupboard here. I'm going to pull out a 1 cup measuring cup. I'm going to go and grab a tablespoon right here. And what I'm going to do is go into my fridge over here. And remember the buttermilk culture that we made? Well, it's right here, and I have labeled cheese on it. Now, it's not actually cheese, but that tells me it's for cheese making. It's my cheese starter. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put 1 cup of my buttermilk, and I'm going to just mix the top a bit because the cream sets at the top. And I am going to pour in, you see those clumps? That's beautiful starter. I'm going to pour in 1 cup of this buttermilk starter. And I spilt a little, don't worry, that's what a rag's for. So I'm going to take my whisk now. I'm going to put my buttermilk starter in here. And it is cold. I did not preheat my buttermilk starter. And now I'm going to whisk it really, really good. And remember, I turned off the hot plate, you guys, but there's always heat coming from your hot plate. So putting in the cold starter, actually, the milk probably got to about 84 Fahrenheit. In the meantime, now it's cooled back down and it's just perfect. So mix it up really, really, really good. And then what you want to do is put your whisk in your sterilized cup. Put a lid so no critters or dust or anything can lick your milk that's going to sit up. And then you're going to come here and you're going to put 30 minutes in a timer. And you're going to start it. So now what you need to do is basically let that culture grow in the perfect temperature medium. And in 30 minutes, we will add rennet. So 30 minutes are up. Now it is time to add the rennet. Now you could use an animal-based rennet or you can use vegetable rennet. I just use an animal-based rennet. I really like using it and it sets up really, really quick. Vegetable rennet can sometimes take a little bit longer, but with the same result. In this case, I'll use animal rennet. Now what I like to do is in the 30 minutes, my milk temperature has dropped. Obviously, it cools off a little bit. With rennet, you need to keep this at that 82 Fahrenheit. Too cool, the rennet doesn't set up. Too hot, and the rennet doesn't set up properly either. So it just has to be right temperature, and that's what's tricky about cheese making. And I find with a lot of books, you have to put your pot in a water bath to keep it at the right steady temperature. Well, I don't got time to fool around. I don't have time to fool around with that kind of stuff. But what I have learned, and I've made about 60 of these blocks of cheese now, is that it is still warm. It dropped a bit, but what I'm going to do in the time that it takes me to get my rennet ready, I am going to put my hot plate back on high. Now it's going to be on high for about, I would say, a minute. And it is just going to increase and warm things up just enough without burning my milk to get that perfect temperature. It's a little trick that I have taught myself, especially throughout the winter while my house cooled down. I found that my milk was cooling down faster. In summer, I found that I didn't have to heat it like that because my temperature around me was warmer and therefore my milk did not cool off. So this was a little trick I taught myself. Now I'm going to talk a little bit here. So when I do rennet and turn on my hot plate, I just do it in one motion. Now with rennet, a word of advice, you always put it in the fridge. If it's not left in the fridge, it breaks down and spoils and your rennet is gone. When I am mixing the water, when the rennet, you need to dilute the rennet a little bit. And I'm talking like a tablespoon of cold water to a teaspoon of rennet. It cannot be hot. If you add hot water by mistake into your rennet, you are actually going to ruin your rennet. So it's very, very important that it is room temperature water or just normal cold water out of the tap kind of idea when you are mixing your rennet. So I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of water. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of rennet. I'm going to mix those two together. I'm going to pour it in the pot, and then I'm going to show you how to whisk properly rennet in. If you just pour it and accidentally walk away for a second, it will just start setting up. It's really got to be mixed like that. So that's what I am going to do. I'm going to get my rennet out of the fridge. Actually, I'm going to put my hot plate on. As you can see here, I'm going to grab my rennet out of the fridge, and I always give it a little shake. I'm going to grab my measuring, and this is one thing you really want to get right. So I'm going to put a teaspoon of rennet in there. I'm going to close this up just like this, get it back in the fridge. I'm going to walk over to my sink. I'm going to put a teaspoon of water. I'm going to walk back. I'm going to mix with the same spoon I measured. I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to grab my whisk. I'm going to pour, and I'm going to whisk the top. Now, the reason I whisk the top is because you have fat that has come to the top, and that fat needs to get mixed with the rennet first, and then I move my whisk down and get the rest. And I'm moving in nice quick circular motions to get this thoroughly mixed. And you want to mix for about 1 minute. Rennet has to be thoroughly mixed. If you don't, it's not going to set up right. I'm just going to go the other direction. And all the while, my hot plate is heating up underneath to get this milk back at right temperature. Now this is just awesome how this is going to set up this cheese so beautifully here. Okay, I think that's well mixed. I'm going to turn my hot plate off. I'm going to put my whisk in my sterile cup. I'm going to put my lid back on my pot. And now I'm going to let it sit about 40 minutes. And now with the temperature in my house and the temperature of my milk, it's about 40 minutes. But it can take as quick as 30 minutes to as much as 1 hour. So you're going to have to do, let's say you put 30 minutes in, do a check. If it's not quite set up, and I will show you, I will put 30 minutes in and show you what it looks like when it's not set up. And then I'm going to show you at about 40 minutes what it looks like when it is set up, okay? So you know the difference and you know what to look for. So I will see you in 30 minutes. So we are actually 25 minutes, and I'm going to do a quick check here just to show you. So Nova, come a little bit closer and can you see it in the pot there? I want to make sure that right there, that looks good. Now I'm going to cut the curd. And you see that? See how well it cuts? And believe it or not, mine's setting up really, really fast. So this is actually a really good setup, which actually just shocked me because obviously my house is a bit warm here and we're setting up faster. So this is a good example to always check a little bit early. And yes, even though I've made this how many times, things still surprise me. So when the curd cuts like this, you are done. Now, a not so good cut would be if I cut and the line just disappears and you don't actually have a line. It just kind of goes back into each other, almost heals itself up. It's not set up properly. So in this case, I'm going to scrap my time. I am going to go and just cut my curd. So you need to back up just a little bit, Nova, just like that. Awesome. And what I'm going to do, and remember the tool that I'm using here is just actually a cake icing actually spreader for a cake. And I use it for my curd cutter. So I'm going to go around the pot I'm going to just loosen the curds around the pot. And you can see the whole thing loosening. And then I am going to, as even as I can, I'm going to cut it in about, once my cheese stops moving, about 1 inch cubes. Now, I am the worst person at cutting things evenly. My husband jokes about it all the time. So just cut it into little cubes, just like that. Now, what happens is that from what I cut, they're going to be long, but I don't want it long. I want it smaller curd. So I'm going to angle my curd. I'm going to call it a curd knife, and I am going to go into it, and I'm going to angle it to cut the bottom. And on top, and I'm going to angle it here, and I'm going to get all the way underneath. I cannot believe how fast this set up today. So anyway, so you can see how good my curds look, nice and small. And I am just cutting them up as small as I can. The smaller they are, the more whey comes out of them, and that's what we really want. So this liquid is the whey that you see, and the clumps here are the curds. Okay, so that looks really good. So now what you want to do is let this sit for 10 minutes. And what's going to happen is a lot of the whey is going to come out of the curds that you just cut. So again, let's put 10 minutes in the timer. And what I like to do in this 10-minute time, I like to set up a big bowl to pour the curds in. I get my cheesecloth taken out. I get my cheese press out. I get my initial 15 pounds of weight, a 10 pound and a 5 pound weight out. I get my form for my cheese. I get my salt ready. You need a tablespoon of salt ready in a small container. You need another smaller bowl to make sure that you can mix your curds. So this is stuff that I'm going to get ready in the 10 minutes that I am going to wait for the whey to come out of my curds. Because after this, we're going to heat up the curds, and it's going to be basically from there to the straining, to the mixing, to the press, all within 15 minutes. So you need to have everything set up. So that's what I'm going to set up. If you want to watch me, let's go do it. Okay, so the curds are ready to get mixed, but the first thing we're going to do is remember we got to get this set up. So I have a large cheesecloth that's going to go over a fairly large bowl. Now what happens is that if you don't have an extra helper and you take your pot and pour everything in here, the cheesecloth is going to go like this. And that's not much help. So what I like to do is I went into my kids' little goodie Brett box for their hair, and I permanently took some clips, and so I put these clips around my bowl. So what happens is when I pour now, my cheesecloth does not move. Now I like wearing gloves when I work with cheese, just because I get called away a lot and it's easy just to slip my gloves off. So the other thing I have is another smaller cheesecloth that I'm going to put in my form that will go here. And you notice that I have another bowl. Now this bowl is important because when I am putting my curds into my mold, the whey that drips out is going to get caught by my bowl. The other thing that's important is you need another bowl for mixing the curds, the warm curds in. You need a tablespoon of salt. You need a 10-pound weight. You need a 5-pound weight. And then you need the last part of your cheese press. So I have all of this set up. So let's go back over to the pot. So when I went through all the tools that you need your ladle for the curds, and this ladle, like I explained before, is actually used for deep frying, but works really good for cutting up your curds really small. So I'm going to use my ladle, and I'm going to go right to the bottom, and I'm going to start lifting up my curds. And when they're in clumps like this is called matting, and this isn't a good thing. And so we need to loosen this up, and you notice how much liquid, which is the whey, pulled out of the curds in that 10 minutes. So I'm just going to break up. At the same time, I'm going to put my hot plate on, and I'm not going to turn it on really hot. I'm going to turn it on to medium low. And if you put it on too hot, you're actually going to melt your curds at the bottom, and you don't want that. So you need to constantly stir. Now this is a part that you do not want to walk away on or leave, because you have got to continuously stir this, or you are going to actually burn your cheese, have it all matted up, and it's not gonna at all work out really well. So I'm loosening the mats up here, as you can see. And I'm basically, for now, just going to literally kind of stir this. Now, I'm going to heat this up to 100 Fahrenheit. I don't want to cook it. I just want to have really warm curds. The warm curds will help, excuse me, the whey to come out. And you want to draw as much whey as possible out of those cheese curds. So basically I'm going to stir just like this, and I'm going to take my temperature here just to see where I am. And it doesn't take long. Like, I'm already at like 97. It does not take long to heat up this pot. My oven is really, really efficient here. And it heats up quite fast for an electric. So you need this to be at 100. And I'm just holding it here, mixing it. And we have 1 more degree to go. This might take you a little bit longer, depends on your stove. But this process does not take long. Okay, so we're at 100. I'm going to turn my hot plate off. I'm just going to put this off to the side. Now what I'm going to do is grab my pot, and I'm going to come over here, and I am going to pour this. And you can see, you kind of splatter a little bit, but you can see how the clips totally help this process out. There we go. So I'm going to just put my pot off to the side. And now this is where I use my gloves. Now these gloves are always my cheese making gloves. So I'm going to put my gloves on. I'm going to take my clips off. I'm going to put them to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 4 corners, and this is where I speed things up. And I'm going to just quickly drain this. So what I'm going to do, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm going to just drain as much whey as possible out. So instead of letting this hang for another 40 minutes, I'm going to just work my curds a bit, and I'm going to drain as much as this whey out. If I if I hung this, I would have the cats all over licking this. And so I really, really speed it up by doing this process. And you can see I'm just kind of poking at the curds. I'm not squeezing them. I don't want them to get stuck in the cheesecloth. I'm literally just kind of moving them around to making sure there's no puddles of whey that is being caught. So that's almost done. You can see, I mean, there'll always be whey coming out, but you want the majority. And so I'm going to just tighten it just a bit, let that drain a little bit more, and then we're going to put those warm curds into this pot. I'm going to slightly move this, move my salt over. Okay, that looks really good. So what I'm going to do is take the curds, put it into the bowl, and then I'm just going to let it roll out. And I put my cheesecloth here back into that pot, the cheese pot, because I'll wash it. So these are warm. The key is to keep them warm. The salt goes in, and if you had flavoring, this is where your flavoring would go. So you would put a tablespoon of hot chili peppers. You could put a tablespoon of dill, ground dill. You can flavor this whatever, basil. After that, you want to mix it. So these curds are warm, they're not hot, and now you really, really want to mix in that salt. Now, as I'm mixing this, a question comes to my mind. What if, while I was making the cheese, I didn't check my curds at 25 minutes? No big deal. It would have been 15 minutes when the timer went up. And you know what? A little bit of whey might have been at the top and it done, but that 15 minutes wouldn't have hurt anything. Okay, so that looks really good. So what I like to do with my gloves or your hands is I'm just going to go in here and give them a quick rinse. Just like so. So the next really important thing, you guys, is this cheesecloth. Dip it back into your warm whey. What happens is when you make it wet with the warm whey, because it's already here, your cheese isn't going to stick to your cheesecloth near as bad if you would have left it to dry. If you left it dry, it has a habit of sticking. So you make your cheesecloth wet with the warm whey. Then you organize your cheesecloth in like that, and you will start putting your curds into your mold. And I just kind of evenly spread it out like so. And sometimes, because I am dealing with raw milk, I don't measure the amount of cream that goes in. The more cream, the more curds you make on the same amount of milk. And sometimes sometimes I fill this up and overflow it. Other times with the same amount of milk, I almost don't have enough curds. So this is what happens when you're dealing with just your own cows and a little bit of variables into it. See, as you can see, there's a lot of curds here, but I still have a handful of curds here. So my cream was very thick, and I actually have a little bit more curds, but don't worry. You know what I do? I drain this, and I just put it on top of my toast in the morning, or the kids eat it. So there's never no waste. but that's a variable that you are going to come across, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do, I really fill it full. I'm going to take my cheesecloth here and I'm just kind of wrap it over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, what I would do in the cheese press, but you can't see it because of the container. So when I have this, I would lift this all up and then do it, but I'm going to do it here to show you. I take my top and I press it down. Okay, so what happens is I'm actually evening the top, so when the weight comes on, it presses it down evenly, and this is more steady. I'm pulling the whey out a little bit more, so I'm putting quite a bit of force on here, and now this is nice and ready. The top is for the weights. So that's what I would do in the cheese press, but I'm going to do it right here. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it into the cheese press, get it all ready, like so. And then I'm going to take my 10-pound weight, put it right on top, and then I'm going to put my 5-pound weight on top. Now I'm going to put the timer in. You want it to press for 15 minutes. Then we're going to flip it, press it for another 15 minutes, and then we're going to add more weights on. So in the meantime, I'm going to tidy things up here. I'm going to just basically, I'll show you what I'm going to do with these curds, because if you guys have any questions, how do I drain these curds? Well, let's just do it in the 15 minutes that I'm waiting. I take my extra curds like that. And I just go over, I mean, it's nothing fancy. I just go over, I drain, just like that. And I just actually press it. And the curds kind of stick to each other. Like so. I mean, you could put this in another cheesecloth and squeeze it, but I'm going to eat this fresh tomorrow, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then what I like to do is, because I like my cheese to have a little bit of salt, I'm looking for where I put my salt, then I just sprinkle a little salt on, mix it up, and there you go. This here would be very close to cottage cheese. So if you don't press your cheese, you can actually make cottage cheese with rennet, and this step right here would be your cottage cheese. How about that? So that'll be on my eggs in the morning. I got about 11 minutes left, so we're just going to pause. I'm going to tidy things up, and then we're going to start flipping the cheese with the weights. Okay, so when we did the original press and got some whey out, I forgot to say you can just pour that whey into the bowl with the other whey. And we're going to actually use this bowl here. Let's take out the weight. So this is after 15 minutes. And I'm going to pull out my press, or my mold, and I'm going to put it right here. Now what you see in here is some whey that I'm going to pour again into my big bowl. And so let's take a look, because we got to flip the cheese. So we just unravel it, just like this. And then I just kind of pull at the cheesecloth, plop it out, and straighten up my cheesecloth again. Take a look. Look how much it held together. So now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put it back in its form, like so. I'm going to wrap it up once more. I've got the little end caught in here. There we go. So I'm going to wrap it up. And I'm going to just lay it flat. It doesn't matter if this hangs over. And then I'm going to put the top back on. And I'm going to grab it again. And I'm going to put it back in here. And then I am going to do, again, the 10-pound weight. Because what you do to one side, you do to the other. I'm going to put the 5-pound weight. And then we do another 15 minutes onto this. And then we'll do it again for longer. Okay, so we are on now the third press. So it's 15 minutes later. My son here is getting me the rest of my weights. And he's going to stack them up here as he goes. So what I'm going to do is take the weights out of here. I'm going to take my mold out of here. And what I'm going to do is actually come over here and just kind of wring out the cheesecloth that was in the way, like so. I'm again going to drain the whey, and you see how much less whey there is? There will be less and less as we go. And now I'm going to flip again, and this time we are going to put all the weights on the cheese, and we are going to press for 1 hour. So I'm going to again flip it, put it in the form, put this on top just like so, get it right back in, and I'll make sure that's centered, and I'm going to start adding my weights. And always make sure that your weights are centered. So 10, 20, this is 30, this is 40 pounds, this is 45, and this is 50. So 50 pounds of weight on here. This cheese press is going nowhere. So we are going to put 1 hour in the timer, and then we're going to do the final press. So we are a good 1 hour, actually it's 1 hour and 10 minutes later. In that time we had lunch, and I had a 20-minute snooze. Look at that. And now we are back to flipping our cheese for the last time. So again, we're going to do kind of the exact same process. We're going to pull all the weights off. Okay, last one here. And now we're going to put the mold on that bowl again. Again, a little bit of whey. So the last press here, there won't be near as much whey. Most of it comes out the first 3 presses. So what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to pull on that cheesecloth. It pops out. I'm going to flip it on my hand. Again, rearranging the cloth. And I'm just going to put it right back in. Again, flipping the 2 sides. Putting the top back on. Putting it back in. And then putting all the weights back on. So now you are going to leave it for 15 hours, 15 hours. So basically I'm going to leave it in here. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to get left overnight, and I will take it out in the morning and have cheese. And I'm going to go through a couple of things at that time. So let's just take a moment here for a second and talk about the whey. So what do I do with all this whey? There's about 1.5 gallons of whey here. One, you can make delicious muffins. Okay, this is an excellent, excellent liquid for muffin making. 2, if you don't want to make muffins, you can make an awesome bread, which that's exactly what I am going to do. I am going to show you after this how I'm going to turn this whey into a cultured, into actually my substitute for yeast and make bread out of it. So I'm going to make bread with whey and wheat flour, and it's going to rise and it's going to be beautiful and delicious. Those two ingredients, it is simply amazing. So you can make bread out of it. You can feed plants. Plants thrive on whey. There's no, you should never throw it out because there's always a use for this. If you don't want to use it in your house, give it to a plant, a tree, a shrub, anything can use the whey. The other thing is if there's still a lot of fat in your whey, you can actually make ricotta cheese, and you can look that up on many recipes and even the books that I have showed you before. You can actually make ricotta cheese out of it. So don't throw away your whey, okay? So with that being said, I am actually going to put my whey off to the side where cats cannot drink it. I'm going to clean this up. I'm just going to tidy things up, put this in the sink as I am done here till tomorrow morning. So I guess we'll see you 15 hours later. Good morning. We are 15 hours later. Actually, we're good more like 16 because you know how you wake up in the morning, get ready. Anyway, I had to wait for my children to wake up to help me film this. So we're a solid 15 hours. I'm going to take all the weights off of the cheese. Now this cheese, because it is pressed so well, I don't worry about having it dry out. In fact, I don't like it at all if it's dried out. It doesn't grade very nice. It's just too dry. So there is a little bit of whey in here. Not very much. It's about a tablespoon. So what I'm going to do is take my cheese out and show you the final product. Again, you just take it right out and just unwrap the cheesecloth from around it, just like that. And I just put all this back in, even with the whey, because I'll just wash it. So there you have it. So what I'm going to do is sometimes, I'm going to grab a knife here. Sometimes what I like to do is just trim off the top here, just to make it a little bit more even. And the kids love this because that means that they get a little cheese treat. But if I'm not too worried about that, then you can just leave it. But that's how it looks. This is just the form, because if you take a look at my form at the bottom, it's a little bit broken. I had a different idea at first, and I actually kind of broke my mold until I got a really good process. So that's why there's an indent, but no big deal. So this is what it looks like. It's a little bit moist, but once you put it in the fridge, it stiffens right up for 24 hours. The other thing that I want to mention is if you would eat this fresh, it squeaks. My kids call it squeaky cheese. It's just because it actually squeaks the first 24 hours. And I'm not sure exactly why that happens, but it does. But then after 24 hours in the fridge, the squeak goes away. So you can use it fresh. I have literally taken this cheese out, and I have cut this and grated it and made pizza instantly, salad. So you can definitely use this fresh. I'm going to just show you when I cut it fresh what it looks like, and I'm just going to cut this straight in half. So take a look at that. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So it's going to stiffen. You see how I can press it down? It'll stiffen up a bit in the fridge. So I'm going to put in my container here, just like so. And that is it. If you're using one of these specialized containers, I do have 2 vents open. I have used other containers before just fine also. So there you have it. I'll put it in the fridge. That is how easy it is to make cheese and to enjoy it. Again, this cheese does not need to be at room temperature for 3 or 4 days to dry it out. You will enjoy the flavor right off the bat. For aging, let's say, you know, what happens when I was making like 4 of these a week? Well, I actually vacuum sealed the ones that I wasn't using, and I had them in the fridge for about 2 months until we actually needed to use those ones. And the flavor does get a bit sharper. It does age well. There was no mold even when I took them right out of the press and I vacuum sealed it within 5 minutes. No mold, no extra liquid, worked wonderful. So this is a really, really good recipe that we love, my children love, and anyone who's tried it loves it also. So if you have any comments, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the next video.